We're installing a vintage air conditioning unit into our 56 Chevy Bel Air. This is a Gen 4 unit. I'm going to show this installation in two different episodes. In this first episode, I'm going to show you what we got done this weekend, which was to install the condenser unit on the front end, modifying the brackets, and getting the brackets all fit in, all the tubing that goes to the dryer, getting all that set up through the bulkhead. And then also a bit of fiddly work. I got into the controller mechanism. This is the original factory heater control that's now been modified with all the vintage air switches and wiring harness. So there's a lot of modifications you need to do to this. So that's all in this episode. If you're interested in seeing how we got this done this weekend, stay tuned. All right, we are back in the garage. It has been a very, very long time. The last few videos I did were on putting in the wiring harness. It was an unboxing video, and there were 3 different episodes that went and covered, I don't know what, 4 hours of footage installing this wiring harness. But anyway, that's the last thing I did. And then I had to take a little bit of a break. We had Cruising the Coast. I went and visited my son out of town, and then I had surgery. So now I'm back in the garage, and I'm really excited. I'm finally getting my legs back from underneath me after that. And so now it's the holidays, but I got some extended time, a little bit of time to spend in the garage. And where we're going to go next is something that I was going to skip leading up to Cruising the Coast. I knew I was pinched for time, so I was not going to put in the vintage air unit just yet, but now I am. I was going to delay it and come back and put it in afterwards after I got Christine rolling, which was, in planning, a bad idea. So once I realized I couldn't get Christine to Cruising the Coast, I decided to go ahead and put this vintage air unit in now while everything is half disassembled. So that's good. So let's get into it. So keeping it brief, let's just go over the major components of what we got to deal with, just so you can see where we're going to go. But the first part of the unit is the compressor, which I've got a little peanut compressor that I bought that's going to take R134 refrigerant. And this compressor now, I put this all in when I put all my pulleys and belts in. So there's a video where I did that, where this went in, but that's the extent of it. It's just this bracket system. There's a bracket system here that you can get for a vintage air unit that holds the R134 compressors. And even though this is a peanut compressor, which is the smaller version, the bracket system still works. So that's on there, and it's got one wire lead on it that powers up the clutch. Okay, the second part of it is the evaporator coil. And the evaporator coil is the part that goes inside of the car, and in this box from Vintage Air, it's got all of its little servos and gates and motors and a little electronic console, a little electronic module here that controls everything. That's all in this box. It's also got the vent hoses and the vents themselves. And you'll notice that it comes with these inexpensive, very modest plastic style vents. We're not going to use those. I've got another way that I'm going to do that. I bought the more expensive factory style that goes on the dash. So we're going to cut 2 holes in the dash and put in these vintage looking style units that go there. And then the next part of the unit is the condenser coil. So the condenser's in here, and it is the unit that goes behind the grill. So I haven't opened it yet. It's got brackets. It's got some of the hard piping, the tubing for the refrigeration lines. And this is probably the dryer. So there's a dryer that goes with it. Yep, there's the dryer. So there's going to be a dryer, condenser. Those are going to mount up here. I got the V6. Christine was originally a 6-cylinder, so the 6-cylinder radiator, I have this brand new radiator that's in a 6-cylinder position. So this bracket system, hopefully, I believe it's supposed to be engineered for this. So we're going to do that. So the last part is the hose kit. So the hose kit has a couple of hoses. It's got the distribution and the return line, and then it's got some fittings with it. Some ends that have to be crimped onto the hoses, and of course I don't have the equipment to go from this to that, but I know a place that'll do it. So what I got to do is I've got to get all of this roughed in, and I'll install the evaporator under the dash, connect all the ducting. We'll drill out those 2 vents, put those in, and then we'll, underneath the hood, we'll route the hoses over here, come up here to the condenser, and the condenser coil will be up here with the dryer. And then I think the one last thing is the wiring harness. So how do you wire all this stuff up? And Vintage Air does give you a wiring harness, and I've already gone over this in my head with the instructions, so I know what's going on here. There's my instructions. Let's start cutting, drilling, and fitting. Here we go. So we're going to start with the controller. This is Christine's factory original controller. Christine did not have air conditioning. There were two levers here, and then somewhere in the process of disassembling Christine, the little lever here broke, and they tell you to retain all this, and they tell you to drill a few holes in this. But then, as I went shopping for a new lever, I discovered that they sell a replacement lever that already has the holes drilled in it that they're asking you to do. So I decided to go ahead and just get these instead of modifying these. So I got the pre-drilled levers, and then I got some new handles, some new knobs that go on to the end of those handles. So let's get into the instructions here. And it's a lot of pages to just the controller. You know, it's a lot, but I don't think it's that difficult once I went through it. So they tell you to disassemble, and they tell you what to keep and what to get rid of. So remove the knobs and retain, remove the blower switch and discard, remove the control bezel and retain, remove the OEM placard, which is the little lens that says, here you go, temperature and defrost and so on and so forth. I have mine, and they tell you to ash can that because they give you one that says Vintage Air, and it's got how the controls work. So then it says remove the inside-outside air lever retaining clip, stud and discard. So they tell you to discard that. In the kit, they give you all these electronic little switches. So here, this has got a little plug, a little 3-prong plug on the end or so, and then these things slide in and out, and they give you 3 of these, and then they tell you how to modify these or adapt these specifically for in my case, the 1956 controller. So we're going to go over all of that and do that real quick. Well, taking it apart was pretty intuitive. There's a whole lot of Phillips screws, 4 screws holding on the bezel. Then all the little knobs were held on also by Phillips screws. They all unscrew. Then there's the outside lever, air lever, was somewhere in here mounted to this. But that was a little pin, and that pin had a little retainer clip, and I just used a screwdriver to pry the retainer clip and gouged myself in the process. Of course, it's not a project if we don't leave some DNA. Then the two levers here, that was a little more of a challenge, but it's actually a friction fit on this pin. So there's a pin that just slides into here, and the spring holds the 2 levers apart. But I just used a vice grip and pried on it a little bit without prying this pot metal against itself, and it started to move out with a little bit of WD-40, and then it pushed right out. So I don't know, this is 60 plus years of gunk, and it still came apart. But there you go. So the 2 levers, the 3rd lever for the inside-outside air, all the little knobs, all that's there. And then the last thing was this heater or OEM blower switch is what they're calling it. So this came out all in one unit. There was a plug on the back of it. I'm not quite sure. I doubt we're going to be reusing this, but you never know. So we'll see. But also I noticed that this in this little plug is also the little light that illuminates the display. So that's on this. We'll have to figure out where that comes into play. But now that it's all apart, I'm going to go ahead and take it inside. I'm going to go ahead and clean this up with some soap and water. I'm going to take this and put some aluminum foil and some phosphoric acid, and I'm going to clean up this chrome as best I can. And I'm going to take some black paint, and I'm going to infill the off, fan, and high. So that's what I'm going to go do next. And there it is. So I cleaned it up inside. You can see it's got a little bit of pitting. It's not perfect, but I mean, this is 1956. This is Christine's original. I went ahead and did some black infill, and I just used a Q-tip and kind of like screeded it off, and then used a tissue and wiped off the black from the sides. So anyway, this is good to go now. So now the next thing that the instructions said to do was go ahead and modify those two levers. But like I said, all this drilling, this whole step, I don't think I need to do, because I have purchased the replacement levers that already have the holes drilled in them. So let's see what the next step is. Okay, the next thing it wants me to do is install this little bracket adapter. So you remove the cable attachment on the bottom. And this bracket adapter, they tell you to line it up with this one hole, put in a 632 screw with a nut on the back. And then that is used to align this. And now that this is aligned, you go ahead and drill that hole and put in another screw. Not quite sure, but they gave me another lever here that I thought was going to replace this one, and I thought it said to discard this, but maybe I was wrong, because now it's telling me to go ahead and drill this out. And then it wants me to put something else back in it, maybe. So I guess, I don't know, it's got something to do with tying together with this, so we'll find out. But let me go ahead and get rid of this rivet. There we go. All right, so now I've got that out. And then it said to modify the levers, but my levers, they want you to drill this out, but my levers are already modified because I bought new ones. Cable lever modification, 1955 models only. That whole deal with the rivet. There's no rivet. They don't want me to drill those pins out. I bought those new levers, and I needed my original levers, but one was broken, so I'm going to have to modify that anyway. So I'm going to put back one of my original levers, and the other one, I'm going to have this clevis pin in. So it all averages out. But if you got a 55, I guess you have to do that. If you have a 56, it's already got the pins. It already looks like this. So I'm looking at the assembly diagram for these levers. And the two levers, they do want you to recover the factory lever. The factory lever stays on the bottom, and then the new lever goes on the top. They show you this stacking diagram of how all of this bolts together. And it took me a few attempts to figure it out, but I think I have it. So it's the bolt washer, this nylon washer, their piece with this shoulder washer, then the body, a wavy washer, flat washer, then the factory lever washer, and then a nut. Huh. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to assemble all of that. Okay, so here it is. It's got the factory lever on the bottom, and then the new lever on the top. When it said drill out this pin, this rivet, and it was a rivet and a little thin little tab that was sticking down. They give you a clevis pin that they want you to push into it, and it's got a little retaining clip, so I need to get that fastened here. And there it is. So it's pushed in. It's got the little retaining clip on the end holding that, what they call a clevis. So that's in place now. Now the next step is going to be dealing with these little switches. And they show you, they've got 3 different levers. And so I think they're all the same. Each one of these is a switch. It's a little slide switch. There's no differentiating between them, except they're labeling them, I think, based on function once you cut them. But it looks like it's got 3 contact pins, and then this slides back and forth. And I'm not quite sure what this mechanism is on the inside, what the switch lever is, but yeah, but it must detect a position or something. So we will see, but it tells me that I need to cut 1 in the 3rd hole, or 2 in the 3rd hole, and then 1 in the 2nd hole. So I need to get a tin snip and go ahead and cut these. All right, so all 3 of them are the same, and I'm just going to use little snips here. I go in the 2nd hole. Let's see, the first one says 3rd hole, 2nd hole, 3rd hole. So measure twice, cut once. Boop. Second one. That was 2. I'm going to do 2 of them like that. 2nd hole. flying across the room. And the third one says only the first, even one hole. And that's it. The next step is to go ahead and put these switches on. So we're going to go ahead and do that. All right, I got the whole thing done. Whew, that was a lot of work. It looks simple now that it's done, but all right, this is of course, the factory control panel modified. It's got a control wiring harness that comes back. So this is just like a small harness. This goes on to this connects to part of the system, and there's a bigger wiring harness that goes on the whole thing. But this is just the controller. So it's got the fan speed up on the top, and you'll see that actuates, it pistons this switch here. So they tell you when you set this up to make sure that when this goes all the way to the side and bottoms out, that you want this bottoming out here. So it took a little while to tune that. That's the fan. And then this is I guess the mode, the controller dash floor defrost. So this is controlling this other switch. You can see it, and it's the same thing as far as like when it goes all the way to one side and it bottoms out. When it bottoms out on the face, you want it bottoming out here. And then the last one is a temperature, and this one kind of confused me because now these two, which used to move independently, now they move together. So they are, the one on the left is just a dummy, and there's a bolt that interconnects the two of them. So this thing, it doesn't matter, it's just this one. This one is controlling, you can see that lever down on the bottom. And similarly, it's adjusted so that it basically bottoms out when it's all the way down. So the instructions weren't super crystal clear on all of this. This is going to definitely be seat of the pants once we turn everything on, but now this is all done, and that's just one part of it. You'll notice one thing that they didn't do is they didn't interconnect the old wiring harness here. So there's this is the bulb and socket that goes for the heater or the display. So it slides back here, right? And on the wiring harness has a lead that is dedicated to that. So I either have to recover this socket and put this socket back with this lead, or there's some new sockets in the American Auto Wire kit that will replace that bulb and socket. So I just need to figure out which do I want to do, and then go ahead and do that. And that'll get my lights back in order on this. All right, the next thing we're going to do is the condenser, which goes in front of the radiator. And there's two hose connections here. This goes to the left, to the passenger side. Well, let's see, when I'm looking at it from the front, so it's on the right side of the car, this goes to the passenger side. But there's two different brackets, and these brackets come with the kit. They 1, 2, 3, you recognize those. Those go on the side of the radiator. So there's the 3 bolts that hold the radiator in, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. This bracket's going to slide in, give us a couple of flanges, slide in a couple of flanges. Condenser fits right here. I don't have my horns in, they're not in the way, but I need to put the dryer in here somewhere. They give me a diagram. Give me a diagram. There's a template that shows you what you need to do to drill that bulkhead on that side. So this is the bulkhead over here. I'm not quite sure if they're expecting me to drill it in place or take the bulkhead out, but I think I'm going to have to drill it in place. They give you a grommet for some of the hoses to pass through. Right here, they give you a grommet. And I saw in the instructions, there was a template. Let's see, there it is. So what are they looking for? 1.25 inch diameter hole, and then a couple of existing holes, a new hole here, existing hole there. So I've got to lay this out, drill that out, mount these 2 brackets, mount the condenser, mount the dryer. So when it gets one of those bolt holes, it's for the dryer. And the connections, the interconnecting tubing that's going to go, I guess, from here and then go through the bulkhead. So let's go ahead and see if we can't decipher all that on the car. All right, so I put the template on, and sure enough, there's a hole right here. There's a hole right there. Those are existing holes, and it says existing and existing, but it also says existing hole here, and I don't have anything back there that's like that. I don't think it's going to use it, so I'm not going to drill it. I'm pretty sure I only have to drill a hole here and a hole here. But before I drill anything, I wanted to make sure everything right. So I went ahead and I put the two brackets on, and there's a left and a right, and this bracket just goes on. It slips over the existing bolt holes of the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then I bring the condenser to the front of it, and it doesn't fit. It's 1.25 inches too wide. The bracket spacing is 1.25 inches past where this is supposed to be. So I'm going to hold this on its mounting point. That's its mounting point right here. So this bracket is supposed to be right there. And look, I'm that far off from here to here. So somehow I got to pinch these two brackets in. All right, so I bent one. I just brought it over to my vise, and what I did was I bent it in 4 pieces. I bent it here and here, folded that over, and then bent the two ends because I don't have a metal brake right now. And I did the same thing on this. So this should be parallel to that, hopefully. But now this offset is what I was looking for. I was looking for to get this over to there, and I was looking for about 5/8 of an inch. I don't know that I got it, but I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. Show you how that works. And I'm a little disappointed in these brackets. Not only do they not fit with the condenser, but the quality of the finish on this thing is terrible. These are from Vintage Air, and they are terrible. I mean, I'm going to show you in a second, but just put a little bend in it like that. Come over here, do the same thing. I don't know if these are powder coated or what, but man, the millage on this is terrible. It's peeling off at all the edges. I'm going to have to grind all this paint off and repaint them. See, now I got to do these last outer tabs. I'm going to do that to match. Doesn't take much. And I'm pretty sure it's going to do what I need it to do, but this is silly that I need to do this. It really, really is. That's a factory cradle. That's a bulkhead that's holding that radiator in. That's factory. So there's no excuse for this not fitting. So now you have to do these. I just put it in here and pried with my hand. Just pried it up like that. And just walk my way through. Did it 3 or 4 times. And that ought to do what we need to do. It ought to get the offset that I need. But look, you can see how all these edges are just chipping up. I mean, it's peeling. Look, I'm peeling it off. There's no way that I can put that on a car and expect it to last. It didn't even, I mean, it's not lasting now. In fact, I can see, I don't know if you can see it, the shine, but right here, there's blistering. You know, they didn't prep this material well at all. This is terrible. This is really, really poor quality. Look how bad that is. I mean, that looks used, and it's brand new. Look at you can see the pitting underneath it. So they didn't prep this material, this metal, well enough. But I'll get it right. Last one. All right, I think that ought to be close. Let's see. All right, now that the brackets are bent, got them back on, just tacked temporarily, and I measured them. I'm looking for 20 1/4, and I'm right at 20 1/4 right now. So I don't know if you can see that shape. Bring the condenser over. But here now, let's see, let me get this side lined up. So this side is over here. Now, there you go. That's looking better. There you go. Okay, so that's gonna work. But that's a shame that I had to bend that much. Let's take a look at it. I'm not gonna screw this on because I've got to take these brackets off and paint them. Repaint them. It's terrible. So you can see the offset that I've got from here to there. But look, see this is peeling off? Let's see, I think this one might have been worse. It's peeling all over the place. It's peeling at the corners. And I mean, you know, you just flake it off. So I'm going to take these two brackets off and I'm going to paint them. Oh, but that's enough for one day. Wow, I am feeling it. If you're just a casual observer, a casual watcher to my channel, and maybe you just only seeing this video, like I said, I just had hernia surgery 2 weeks ago, and my regular subscribers know my journey on this. But anyway, I really need to go get some rest. So I will come back in and work on it some more tomorrow. I'll probably try to paint those brackets this evening and get those done, so that way tomorrow I can screw all it in and put all that back together. But I will see you tomorrow morning. All right, good morning. We're back at it this morning. Got a good night's rest. I feel a lot better. I was worn out yesterday afternoon. At least I was sore. But I feel much better today, and I just need to remember not to overdo it. So let's pick up where we left off. As I left off last night, I showed you that those two brackets needed to be bent. I bent them. I also, after I turned the camera off, I sanded them down and I painted them with some gloss black spray paint. And that's down here. So these look much better. But when I sanded these down, my goodness, man, there was more blistering, and the finish from underneath was just coming undone. It was like just surface rust. So even after I got the coating off, it was really blistering, and you could see this. You could see the rust film underneath it. So this was not going to last. But now they're good to go. So what I need to do is I need to go ahead and get those mounted. And when I mount those on there, I'll need to adjust and tune the width to fit the condenser. So now I've got the condenser out, and I started tinkering around with the hoses, the lines that they give you. So they've got these pieces of tubing, and there's two pieces of tubing in the dryer that go with this kit. So it's pretty intuitive where they go. I pulled out all the plugs. There's caps and plugs and all these things, so you need to pull those off. But it's pretty intuitive where these lines need to fit in. And you'll notice there's a fitting here, the way this looks like with this square end. So the square end, it's not a flare. They give you rubber O-rings. So you have to put an O-ring over that. Same thing on this tubing here. Same thing on this one. The last one, the fourth one, is not like that. It's threaded, and it's a different style of fitting. It looks like it's a flare fitting, as opposed to just something that's sleeved like this. So that's got to go in. And the dryer with its inlet and outlet is going to end up mounting behind the bulkhead. It'll end up going back here, which is nice. It'll be out of the way. So what I wanted to do is I put my template up here, and I'm going to put the two brackets on. I wanted to make sure before I drill any holes here, I wanted to make sure that those two tubes are going to actually hit that point, that I'm not in the wrong spot, that I don't need to adjust that up and down, because as we've seen already, fit is not this kit's strong suit. In fact, if you look at this, look at the tube on the condenser. You know, if I've got this on here, that's bent outward. And if I put this one on here, these two should be pretty close to one another, and they are, but look at the angle. You know, this is tilted out, so I'm going to have to take maybe a socket and pry on this a little bit gently and try to get this tube to bend a little bit in this direction. I don't really want to kink it, so I'm going to have to be very delicate and ginger with that, but I'll straighten those two out. So that's where we're at this morning. Let's go ahead and start bolting some of this up together, and then maybe after we get this done, we can get to the inside of the car. So I'm going to put some masking tape over the threads of this fitting, and it's a 3/4 inch. And I'm going to take a 3/4 inch socket and an extension, maybe something to try to bend this, and I'll probably, I don't know, we'll see. Let's see how this goes. So I'll put this on and see how much is sticking out. Wish I had a clamp. Oh no, look at that, it's real soft. I don't need anything. Just my hand. Oh, there you go. There you go. Oh, what was I worried about? Oh, that's perfect. There we go. Shoot, that was a lot easier than I was worried about. Pull that off. Okay, pull tape off, and then away we go. So there we go. All right, let's go see about how this is going to fit. I need to get those two brackets on, put this on, and then see how this aligns with that template. All right, I got it just sitting in place. And I was a little too aggressive with my bends, but they're very close. It needed to be bent. But that's starting to look like it grew there, you know? And you'll notice it's sitting a little high. Watch what happened. This is a cold case radiator. I'll put a link to an unboxing on that. I'm not quite sure that it fits just yet on my hood. I haven't put my hood back because it's really, this nipple needs to be higher than what it is. But that's the way this radiator fits. But the petcock valve is down here, and it is bumping on the core of this condenser. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to trim. I'm only going to come down 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to have to trim this framing, and the last tube is up here. So I got a good bit of 3/4 of an inch before I get into any kind of tube. So I just want to get this flange off the bottom, flange off the back. And what I'm probably going to have to do is, because my petcock, the little wings are interfering with that, this is, I believe, a 1/4 inch pipe, NPT. So I'm going to end up having to get a nipple and extend my petcock out. I need to do something with this. So I'm just going to pull it off for now, and I'm going to relieve this flange on the bottom of the condenser so that I can get all this put together, and then we can see how this is going to line up with that target. All right, you can see I relieved the two flanges with my die grinder. I just cut a little bit out, but you can see this is still too far back, so I'm going to definitely have to extend that out. But once I extend that out, I'll have enough clearance, because that's right where it needs to be. You can see the holes. So the holes are lining up. That's the height. So it's just barely missing it. So now I can take the two tubes and see if the two tubes line up with here, and then we're going to go ahead and drill that hole. Well, I realized I can't move that hole over too much, because the dryer on the back side is going to be about here, and you'll notice it starts to come close to the bottom of the taper. So there's not any room. There's not any room here to move that over to the left. So I'm going to have to probably accept where that hole is and tune and tweak these tubes, which is probably the smarter play. So I'm going to go ahead and drill this. I might cheat it over maybe like a 1/4 of an inch. Who knows if I've got this template exactly right, but I think I do. But I'm going to go ahead and move this over a little bit, not a lot of bit, just a little. And I don't have an 1.25 inch hole saw. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole, and I'm going to use my step taper bit, and I'm going to get that as big as I can, which is about 3/4 of an inch. And then I'm going to have to take my die grinder and wallow out a circle. So that's going to be a process. So there it is. Fits pretty good. Satisfied with that. So now before I drill any more holes, this dryer is going to go on the back side, and I don't know where that clamp needs to be, and particularly I don't know where that clamp needs to be left to right. And that's the more important thing, not the vertical. Vertical, it'll slide up and down, but the horizontal. So what I need to do is I need to put the condenser on, put these tubes on, and then set the dryer and see where that's going to be. So let's go ahead and let's start screwing some of these things in for permanent. And I want to go ahead and put the condenser on. This petcock. And it's kind of odd how it attaches these tabs. The condenser is pre-drilled for these tabs, and you screw in with small little, I don't know if they're number 8s or number 6s. They're really small sheet metal screws, pan heads. and they just screw in through the front of the bracket into the condenser, and it's a real tiny little screw. That's it. 8 of these hold this in. So hopefully that's a number 2. Hopefully. And that's pretty much it. So it doesn't stick out the back. I'm looking at it. Let's see. Yeah, we got to tighten that up a little bit. I'm going to clamp it. Yeah, so it pokes out maybe 1/8 at the most, but of course you don't want that attacking your fins. So we got to get all 8 of these screws in, and then I'll be able to work on the rest of the stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and get this done, and then we can put the tubes on. So now I've got it on the front, and I've got it as snug as I can possibly get it without allowing those screws to get too close. I don't know if the camera angle is going to catch it, but I'm a good 1/8 of an inch off on both sides, and that's what I'm looking for. Is I don't know if the camera will really get it, but that little screw tip, I want it away from the radiator, but I want this tight. I want this snug so that it's not going to draw air from around the front, around the edges. It'll be forced to pull it through here. So on a Tri-5, they normally don't have a shroud, but I have a shroud. I have an aftermarket shroud. This is an aluminum shroud that I painted with Emerald black. So my shroud will definitely draw and pull air. So it ought to pull pretty hard, but there you go. All right, so that's on there. Now that I've got that set, I'm going to go ahead and tighten the 1, 2, 3 bolts on both sides, and then that'll be that, and then we'll be able to get the tubes in on this side. Okay, the 2 tubes are attached, just roughed in. I don't have the O-rings or anything on it yet. I just have them finger tight. I don't have the bulkhead grommet pressed in yet, but I have the dryer in the back, and it is crowded for space. I mean, it's already touching the bottom of the shroud. It's touching that. It's a little bent out of position. You know, the tube's not quite right. It's a little bit twisted. So I'm going to have to doctor some of this stuff a little bit. And there's the bracket. So the bracket, I'm going to end up having to drill a hole. But I've got room for it, of course. And there'll be a hole up front here. And I'm pretty sure that's where the template was saying to drill it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and spot in that bracket. I'm going to spot in this little clamp where I want it. And I'm going to mark the bulkhead, drill the bulkhead, and then I'll be able to tighten that up. But I'm going to have to take these tubes and maybe bend them a little bit in order to get them to fit right, because it could be a little more tighty. This is not bad, but I moved my hole over 1/4 of an inch because this was swinging wide, and I mean, look how wide. I'm not even there yet. You know, if I was trusting this tubing, but the other tube is now, the lower one that goes to the dryer is kicked this way, so I really wish that dryer was higher, and that's not something that you have the ability to adjust. I know the horn comes over here, so maybe that's as low as they could get it with the horn. But I'm sure it all works. So they give you a little bit of mineral oil with the kit, and this is just supposed to put in the O-ring. So mineral oil, and you lubricate the O-rings. And I already showed you where they go. So there's 1, 2, 3 of them. So there's it goes on the 1, 2, and the third one goes on the dryer, and then this other one does not have one. It goes on the refrigeration tube hose that goes this way. So let's go ahead and I'll get the O-rings on. I'll get this tightened up, and I'll see if I can't bend these to suit, but we'll get that buttoned up and move on to the next step. All right, I got everything tightened up. So the condenser's tightened. I've got the O-rings and the fittings, and these are tight, and believe me, on this aluminum, this is so delicate, it's so easy to bend that you definitely want a backing wrench on that as you tighten the other one. You don't want to just turn it against and trust the stiffness of the fitting to resist the tightness that you need to apply to it. So I got both of those attached. I got them through the bulkhead. The bulkhead fits really nicely. I'll show you the dryer on the back. So there's the dryer. The dryer is like literally almost touching. It's basically almost touching the shroud down here. And I've got the one fitting. That's also got an O-ring in it. That's tight. And this is waiting for the refrigeration hose. So now we got this side here, That's the two connections. But the next thing that we need to do is going to involve the hoses, getting the hoses through the bulkhead. They go through where the fan used to be. So the fan motor there's a bulkhead that goes there, and then the evaporator goes on the inside, and my evaporator sitting right here still, and the wiring harness and the ducting. So that's an awful lot of work, and I don't have a whole lot of stamina, and I really probably shouldn't be pushing it to climb and get upside down under the car. That's why I didn't do the inside stuff yet, because I'm still a little bit tender. So I'm gonna cut this one off here. We're gonna do this in two parts. So this first part, you've seen what I've done. The next one is going to be, we're going to put in the evaporator, we're going to put in the controller, the wiring harness, and the hoses from the evaporator to the dryer. So we're going to do all that. I'm going to go to a shop and have them crimp the fittings on the end of the hose, which we have the fittings here. You've got a binary switch that goes onto one, and then you've got the two hose ends that need to be attached. So we're going to do all that. I'm going to bring that to a shop and have them do it. But that's going to do it for this episode. Do hope you're enjoying the episodes, and if you are, please give them a thumbs up. And if you're enjoying the channel, as always, I would love a subscription. So until I see you next time, please take care of yourself. Cheers.